Swain and I are looking at each other going, just passed each other 40 minutes ago.
But did you like as well?
Nope.
No.
Oh, there was a snowstorm today too. I love driving through Advent because of snow. Surely so much fun. Oh, I am so looking forward to school ball. I am so, you have no idea. colleagues, if you would please join me in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. And at this time, do we have any adjustments to the agenda?
Yes, one thing would be to move the review of the audit up after public comments so that we can get on the road after it's done. And the second thing would be 7E, new business, appointment of Joseph Quebec, Tech 1 special ed, at Comer Middle School. And I would ask that we either have a discussion about or table the motion to do the Tri-County agreement based on the fact that it hasn't changed and it's in process right now and not changed, but you have not seen the document in front of you, so probably table it. It hasn't changed, but that's the will of the board on that.
Very good. So at this time, I will entertain a motion for the minutes of the December 13th meeting.
Second.
There is motion and second on the floor to approve the minutes of the December 13th meeting. All those in favor? Those opposed? It is unanimous. This is the time that we allow public comment at our meeting, and if there's oh, no, it says December 13th, is there another one?
She wrote down for
I believe that is. Sorry about that. Moving along, public comment. If there is anyone in the audience that would like to address the board, we ask that you give us your name and the town that you belong to.
My name is Lori Gardner. I'm from Newport. Thank you for listening to my concerns regarding bullying at the elementary level. My name is Lori Gardner, as I have stated, and I run Kidsville Daycare in Newport for over 30 years. I feel one of my duties as a daycare giver is to teach the children and to give them the tools they need to be prepared for the public schools. In the past, I have always taught them to walk away from a situation that they are uncomfortable with. I have taught them to seek an adult when walking away is not an alternative. And I have taught them that violence is never the solution. I told them for every action, there is a reaction, and it's their choice to make it a positive or a negative one. This is my grandson, Levi. He is 5 years old, he is in kindergarten, and he is being bullied. Recently, Levi has been bullied by a classmate. He was chased out of the hall, he was choked with a child's sweatshirt, he was told to stand on the wall at recess by the bully. The other kids were told not to play with Levi. And just recently, while Levi was standing in line, as told, he was shaken by the child. Levi did everything he was taught. He told the child to stop. He told an adult. When he got off the school bus, he told me. And he told his parents, yet it still continues. I asked, who is keeping Levi safe when he's not in my care? Yesterday, I had a 3-year-old hit another 3-year-old in my daycare all over a book. I put the child in timeout for hitting, and then I thought to myself, am I doing the second child any favors? Do I want to teach the second child to be a little bit more aggressive and to stand up to that child? Do I tell him, only as a last resort do you go to an adult, try to handle it on your own first? Do I teach him their procedures to follow, but the procedures only seem to protect the victim? I mean, to protect the bully and not the victim. They are geared in place to make sure the bully's feelings are not hurt. I know what my experience tells me to do. Like I said, I've been in this for 30 years. But I know what my heart tells me also. And as a grandma, when I see Levi get on the bus and turn around and look at me, I have all I can do not to have tears in my eyes and wait for the bus to come back at 3 o'clock so I can make sure that he's had an okay day at school. I am the first adult 8 children see daily as they get off the bus. And I always ask them, how was their day? I don't prompt them. I don't ask them did so-and-so do this today? Did something happen at the lunchroom? I always just say, how was your day? It makes me sad because the stories are sad more often than they're happy. I wonder, when did we lose the ability to keep our children safe in school? Thank you.
I don't follow that.
I'm the grandma.
Good evening. I would like, my name is Amanda Gardner. I'm Levi Gardner's mom, the boy in the story that Lori was telling. I'd like to bring up an ongoing issue, again, that's bullying in the district. I've heard it on the news, I've heard it from my friends, my family, and now I've recently experienced it firsthand after my son was assaulted by another student. The student, mind you, is 5 years old. As Lori had said, he took a sweatshirt and wrapped it around my son's neck and proceeded to put him in a chokehold. Today, to say I was upset when I got the phone call is an understatement. I asked the school to provide me with in writing what they're doing to keep my child safe and other children safe while in their facilities, and I was sent the school code of conduct. I don't know if you've had the pleasure of reading the code of conduct, but there are a lot of expectations with vague consequences for violations. For example, let me read to you expectations part C, bullying. Any student who engages in conduct that constitutes as bullying shall be subject to disciplinary consequences up to and including suspension and expulsion. A student's bullying behavior may also be addressed through other behavioral interventions. I would like to know what the school defines bullying as. I think this needs to be discussed and added to Part C of this code of conduct. So I asked the school what the disciplinary action was being taken as a result of the chokehold. The student was held in the office, and that was all the information the school could provide me because of confidentiality. I should also let you know that this student, again, who's only 5 years old, assaulted another student, giving the student a black eye on 2 separate occasions. This little boy needs help with his aggression, but if his parents are not advocating for him, who is? It says under the Special Services Part B review of the IEP, the school shall schedule a meeting to review IEP of a student who has been removed from class when school officials and or parents believe the student may present a substantial likelihood of hurting himself or others. Is this the start of this child's bullying career? What's next, a gun, a knife? I've heard he's just adjusting to kindergarten. The point is valid, but that he could be adjusting, but so is the little boy in Virginia who shot his teacher last week and he was only 6 years old. Does it take shooting to get some attention to the major problem that we have in this district? Again, I asked what the school was doing to keep my child safe, and they could not give me specifics. Based on the ongoing events through the middle school and the high school, there needs to be a change in the disciplinary action for surrounding bullying. My son is in kindergarten, and the little boy who assaulted him needs help. The behavior needs to be addressed and taken care of, or before you know it, this little boy will be the bully in middle school or high school. So please listen to my cries for help. Let's work together to make change at a young age in hopes that we can mitigate bullying in generations to come.
Do you have any comments at this time?
Well, I do think it might be important to, it's a very touchy situation. Again, it's the same thing as 2 5-year-olds that started over a toy. There was some physical contact. I think it's important to follow up with Laura. The teacher handled the situation, called both parents, walked through the situation. It's developmentally appropriate to have a student stay out in the office, come down and see the principal, maybe talk to the social worker, and those types of things. And that's what happened in this situation. But Laura provides just with a short synopsis of her response. I think it's important. I don't want you to think that things don't happen in kindergarten between 2 5-year-olds and they're not handled developmentally appropriate by the principal. So, Laura, if you feel comfortable.
Yeah, I can say I'm not going to get into detail again because the other parent and student is not here. I think there is a few important details that if the board would like to know in a different non-public setting, I'd be happy to provide about the actual altercation between the 2 students. But aside from that, I would say there was a situation where a student was physical with another student, which was never acceptable. The teacher saw and intervened immediately and brought the other student to the office. This was about 1:30 in the afternoon that it happened. The student remained in the office, and did a lot. There was a lot of reflection that goes on, particularly with 4, 5, 6-year-olds about, we use the zones of regulation. So a lot of what I do with 4, 5, and 6-year-olds that are sent to the office is we talk about identifying what the problem was, how the student responded. I have a lot of visuals that go along with the zones of regulation that allow students to be able to identify what the size of the problem was and was their response appropriate to the problem. So based on the way they responded, did it make the problem smaller or did it make the problem bigger? So a lot of those sorts of things are typical with students of that age. Families are always contacted anytime students are physical with each other, regardless of the situation. In some situations, every situation is different. So it could be over a toy, it could be because a kid wants to swing, it could be because they don't want to do something. But either way, I would say probably more importantly than even those things, we are a PBIS school, and so particularly with the 4, 5, and 6-year-olds, there's a lot of proactive teaching that goes into those grade levels all of the time about how students should interact with each other. So what do we do when we are upset? The teachers use a lot of literature, and they use a lot of the zones of regulation, even with characters in books, to say, what was this character's problem? What was the size of this character's problem? How did they react? Did it make their problem bigger? Did it make it smaller? So there's a lot of kind of reflecting and talking about what would a better choice be. I have a lot of reflection forms that range from visuals that kids can use to circle what their problem was, what would a better choice be, all the way for older students where they're really doing a lot more writing and a lot more of that themselves, and they need less kind of guidance through that. So, I mean, I guess I would say it's never acceptable for kids to be physical with each other, and when it happens, and I say when because these kids are little, and even though we're very proactive about teaching kids that it's never okay to put your hands on each other, 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds are pretty impulsive sometimes, and so that's always addressed seriously because it's never acceptable for kids to put their hands on each other, and it's addressed immediately, and parents are notified. And what I would say in addition to this situation is the teacher did call both parents that were involved, and the following day Amanda did call the school, and I returned her phone call and spoke with her for a considerable amount of time and did talk her through all of the ways in which we are proactively teaching these skills to kids, how this situation was handled, at which point she asked for something in writing, and so I did send her an email with the policies, and in the email I did state the policy does not do a great job of talking about all of the other things that we discussed on the phone as far as how we handle and intervene with our youngest students. It really jumps to suspension and expulsion, and so I did state that in the email and on the phone with her as well. So that was all covered, and I offered if they still wanted to set up a meeting or something like that, we could do that, but at the time she just requested several times, I want something in writing. And so I essentially provided what I was able to provide and told her on the phone that it would really be policies, and then explicitly kind of said it doesn't cover these things, but we've discussed these on the phone. So that's kind of an overview, I guess.
So you may want to contact the principal and the superintendent to sit down and have a meeting and discuss
I
this.
think my biggest concern is that this isn't the first instance with this child. So, I mean, if he continues to do it again, it's Levi right now, who's the next person?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Was there anybody else that wanted to address something with the board?
I actually have a couple of things to address, if you don't mind. My name is Jessica Lay, and I live in Plymouth. There's a couple of things that I wanted to talk with you guys about. I'm not really sure. I haven't had a chance to really sit down with Ms. Brown at all, but there's two things going on. One, for 7th grade, there's a new policy that was established just before Christmas that students are getting tickets to go to the bathroom. They get 2 tickets for the whole day, and they can use it to go to the bathroom or they can use it to fill their water bottle. They can either fill their water bottle and they get a hole punch or a cross off with a permanent marker, or they can go to the bathroom, and once they've used that ticket they can no longer go again or there's 2 tickets, so once they use both, they can no longer go again. So my concern is, like, if a student drinks enough water throughout the day, they should go to the bathroom quite regularly. Also, if a girl has her menstrual cycle, she should go change quite frequently, you know, things happen. Or if they get diarrhea, you know, that happens too. I'm sure that the teachers would make an exception if they did have an accident in the classroom, they could probably go. But I just don't think it's right. My 6th grader is also nervous to ask to go to the bathroom. He actually came to my vehicle last week, and sorry, he had an accident at school because he was too scared to ask to go to the bathroom, and that should not be okay. I get that there's a lot of problems going on with the bathroom right now. I hear the stories about people pooping in the sink, hanging off of the door. And I know there's a problem. But my children should not come home upset, crying that it's a prison here at school and that they can't even go to the bathroom or get a drink if they want to. Sorry. Anyway, that's one issue, and then there's a second issue with the recess situation for 7th grade. I guess there's been a lot of fighting and things going on. God, sorry, I'm emotional. I'm sorry. They have divided recess, and I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but they have divided recess by homerooms. There's 3 homerooms to one side and 3 homerooms to the other, which is, I get what the whole process is to separate the bullies and the kids that are fighting. I get that. But when my son comes home and says he doesn't want to go to school, or that he wants to start a fight just so he can go to the other side like some of the other kids, it's not okay. Kids should be able to go outside and play with their entire class. It's a time where they get to go play with their peers and they learn how to socialize together. The only other opportunity is at lunch. And it's really sad that my children can't play with their friends because they're on the other side. Or, for example, one part of the recess, or one day a week, sorry, not one day a week, every other day they switch sides. So today, for instance, they get to play with the field where they get to do like kickball, except for they're not allowed to bring the kickball out anymore because too many fights were happening. So the only option they have is football. And if you don't like football, well, that's all there is. You can walk around or, I don't know, play in the snow, I guess. And then the other day of the week, they get the facilities where they can play and, you know, like use the weight bench, I guess, or whatever, or a basketball hoop. But there's not really, like, a lot for them to do. And so, I'm sorry, but I feel like kids at this age need to have more like physical equipment such as swings or a jump rope or a hula hoop, or I don't know, years ago we used to use chalk and we draw, which I do know that you have chalk and I'm not saying that you don't, but you know, just more like physical equipment for kids to play on. Like a 5th grader is still quite young. They should be able to play on a slide or a jungle gym of sorts, and we don't have that anymore. And I don't know if there's a plan for it to come in the future, but I'm just trying to make you guys aware that there's a problem and that kids today need more physical exercise and they need to be with their friends and they need to learn how to talk and communicate and get away from the cell phones. I don't know if we can make like a plan for recess that we have somebody go out and do organized activities with students or something along those lines, but I feel like something needs to happen, and a plan for bathroom breaks maybe would be good. I don't know, a scheduled bathroom break where the teacher takes the students out at a certain time, or I don't know what the solution is to the bathroom breaks or the recess, but I just wanted to make you guys aware that this is going on and that, you know, it's emotionally hard for these kids and for the parents, clearly. And I told myself I wouldn't get emotional, but, you know, it's heartbreaking. And it's not that I don't like this school and things, and you know, I want us to be a big, happy community, but we gotta work together to figure out something. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Brown, maybe you could reach out to her and have a conversation? Sure. Thank you. Anything else? Moving along. Audit presentations.
I'm not sure, I suppose the board may or may not know, I suppose this year, audit went out to bid, and we switched audit firms. So we have with us tonight Ron Smith from our Joe Smith and Company audit, as far as, and when we selected them, as far as we've gone out and they offered us the best price, and we've done some pretty extensive research as far as we reached out to about at least a handful of their clients to make sure that their audits were, they were happy with their audits, and everyone seemed to be very positive and talk about the thoroughness of their audits and such. And so that's kind of the selection process and how we got to where we are. We also, as far as the audit process, we kind of this year where we kind of selected a new audit firm, we kind of started the process a little late as far as, so kind of was the fall before we really got into the audit. We didn't have enough to do pre-audit work, and since then through October, November, and December, we've been kind of working through the audit to get to where we are tonight. And so I think Ron's here, and he'll share kind of the audit results and kind of give you some highlights of the audit. And if you have any questions in regards to it, I printed off, it's about a 5 or 6 page present report there with the different slides that Ron will be discussing.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Good evening.
Go ahead.
So just to hit some of the highlights, I know you guys have a long night. You got our highest opinion unmodified, so we didn't find any, material misstatements, fraud or anything like that. We would have to disclose, obviously, in our audit opinion, so you got our highest opinion. In the compliance work, we tested your ESSER programs, which are a huge majority of your federal funds. There were no compliance findings you had, so congratulations. Your bill of health is clean. Your financial condition is above average for school systems. So last year, your carryover balance was about $5.6 million. It grew to about $7.6 million. Do you guys want me to go through this thing here or just get the highlight of the pages? I can roll any way you want me to. I just know it inside and out. So how do you want me to do it? You want me to go through page by page? Or do you want me to just hit the highlights of the pages?
Sounds good.
Highlights?
Highlights.
So last year, your carryover balance was $5.6 million. It'll show you literally on the first numerical page on statement C. It grew $2 million to $7.6 million on 6/30/22, largely in part because you guys returned $1.8 million of expenses back to your budget that were not spent. So that was largely in part of the increase to your fund balance from one year to the next. The revenues were in like $600,000 of your projections. So based on a $32 million budget, like 2%, that's not a lot of room for error. So clearly, that wasn't a lot of that. I believe the majority of that was caused by the state of Maine allocating additional money to its school units during the whole state of Maine. So the big reason that generated the increase of surplus was the unspent money, during your fiscal year. You have one budget cost center that's over budget by $13,000. That's transportation. Your whole budget was not overspent, it was way underspent. So the board will have to, by statute, just take a moment and we can send Joe some information to transfer at a board meeting from one unspent line item and ratify it. You don't have to go back out to any public warnings or anything like that. It's just a simple board action that the statute makes you take to move money to fund that cost center. So yeah, I mean, as far as other monies, you've got like $1.6 million, I think, tucked away for future capital expenditures. $100,000, I think, additionally for a fuel fund, that you have here. You've got a $1.7 million, I believe, in this project that we're sitting in here right now that's left over that will pay for either subsequent advances or get returned back, to that, or pay down debt service. There's options, for you for that. So again, I think financially you're of certainly sound mind and financial condition, as of 6/30/22. Comments and suggestions that we make, that we've made, for just our advice to you. We do like half the municipalities in the state of Maine, like 25% of all the school systems, so we know what's going on. We can sit here and give you some advice. Some things is, as I had told Joe, is one of the things that I would consider is automating your student accounts. They all reside, in various schools, but they don't reside in the business office, on your software that you get. So one advice would be down the road, I think a couple of years as you kind of transition, because last year was a new software year, 2 years, but last year, 2 years ago in 6/30/21, you transitioned to a new fiscal software. I'd still probably some things that we're working with Joe, just because we have some users that are very familiar with that, to kind of like integrate some better, let's say features, but better utilize, your software there, because you're second year new, into that. So I think 2 years, I would look probably to automating your student accounts on that software. And that's what we're typically seeing out there. You have a warning in your article about $80,000 of food service that you typically transfer. There's some wording that we would change, because you typically haven't needed all that money. So if you transferred it, it would like literally move it from your general fund to food service, where it wouldn't be needed because of the surplus your food service fund already has already, to bring that back to zero or north of zero. Just, there's a couple words I would just change in there that we talked to Joe about, and I think maybe one of the other talking points that we did is your technology, that you have a program which is funded by the state, where you have technology, where you allow it for students and teachers and, and things like that. But in its, in its accounting for it, there's like one budget line item, so we really don't see the, like you see the net of it, but we don't see how much we're paying for the technology and how much is being reimbursed from the state. So it's just a simple accounting, step to show that, just to show that activity, so you can see the cost of the program, see what you get reimbursed for. So, I think that's probably the highlights and comments that I would probably say. And the last piece of advice is, we live in these unprecedented times, and really the whole delivery of education has forever changed, in our world, and certainly at this district too. There's a lot of money that's coming into school districts. ESSER, is the one that comes to my mind. I think when ESSER goes away, there'll be different money with a different name coming, because of COVID. Stay true to who your district is. We see a lot of districts out there supplanting, budgets and positions and benefits and things like that with these one-time shots in the arm with these ESSER funds. We see a lot of potential cliffs down the road, not here, because you haven't chosen that path. You don't want to choose that path. That's the advice that I give you. If you're able to use that money for infrastructure needs like you're doing, and certain other things like that, to take away from some leverage down the road in the future budget, carry on with that. Stay true to who you are, and just be careful that this money will go away in 3 years. And the last time we saw it was back in 2008, with ERA. And when that happened, a lot of people that used that money to fund positions and fund programs, when they went away, so the positions, so the programs, so the benefits. So I just say, stay true to who you are, with those ESSER funds, because they're gonna disappear in 3 years. So that's the advice I've been given to a lot of schools, because usually the question is coming out from either a finance committee or school board. What would you do? That's what I would do if you were. Stay true to who you are. So. And any questions you guys have, all of me, I'm more than happy to answer.
Let's get a motion on the floor first.
I make a motion, we accept the audit as written.
I'll second that. Any discussion? Any questions for the audience?
I have a question for Joe. Joe, do you have anything to add, your comments on the audit?
As far as, I think no, I mean, I think the audit, as far as the processes, or the actual financials, or the
The audit itself, I mean, did you think it was good?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I think as far as the, kind of came out of the audit with the, like say, it was a clean audit with no findings. So as far as from that regards, I don't think it could have been any better. I think Ron had a few recommendations here that he's kind of thrown out at us here. But I don't know, Ron, I think you concur as far as audit results?
I think what I hear is you're looking for him to say, kind of, hey, did you feel audited? How'd the process go? Any recommendations going forward that you would make on the process? I think that's what I heard. So, and I'd like to stay out of that advice.
I'm just glad to know that you're happy with it.
Yeah, no, I think the audit process went well as far as, I think next year, I think we'll be able to do it a little in a tighter time frame as far as we get the second year under our belt. I think we'll, kind of targeting earlier, kind of completion date, so.
Yeah, we typically like to be here November and December. So, and I don't see any problem with that, when we get a jump on this thing in April of this year, so.
Anything else?
When you talked about putting the accounting in, the software we have will make that happen, streamlined. You save some of the budgets in each individual school, and it's not.
The students' money, the things that you typically won't see, on a warrant that you guys probably all approve, at a board meeting. So those things aren't coming through on those school warrants, so now you'll start seeing, where, not that you're micromanaging, but at least seeing what's going through, because you got hundreds of thousands of dollars running through these schools, and now you'll see that. And I think you're probably 2 years away from getting there, but that's where I would try to get to. So,
And that'll help with, you believe that'll help with the upcoming warrants for the budgets?
if I'm a board member, I'd like to see where my money's going, including the kids, because you're ultimately gonna be responsible, for that. And as I told Joe, I don't think there's anything wrong, because we're auditing it, we see what's going in and out. We'd certainly be telling you if we saw some major problems here, but you don't wanna wait a year, for us to like deliver that news. So I think that that's probably one thing that I would work to, and now's probably not the time to do that, just because of, switching to a new financial software and really kind of getting that, really, some institutional knowledge on that, and then sitting down with your secretaries in schools, that's what I
That
would do.
software will make it
Absolutely.
happen easily.
Yeah, absolutely. Because right now, you got other softwares in schools that we can use to maintain student account. And QuickBooks is a big one. So,
So I know that this audit process was a little bit different than our previous. How are you feeling about it, Joe? Did it go smooth? I know we talked about it in budget, that it was a little bit different, but.
Well, the big thing about the differences this time is, obviously, as far as we didn't have a pre-audit, as far as the process of the audit is the same, as far as, as far as the, what is being audited and the processes being audited is the same, with RKO, with RHR. I mean, it's the same process. They're kind of they're looking through, doing testings, validating, cash accounts. They're doing sampling on our payables, on our payroll, and then all the federal funds. I mean, so the steps are all the same. It's just this year, as far as it's just whenever you have a new audit firm, it's just getting everybody up to speed with each other. And this year there's no pre-audit because we didn't engage until later. So
we typically start in April. We didn't start till September this year. We're still having this conversation, so I think that's a good day.
Yeah, no, it seems like it went very smooth, and you
Yeah.
seem to know it inside and out, so that's great.
Anything else? Hearing none. All those in favor of accepting this audit? Those opposed? It passes. Thank
Been a
you very
great
much.
pleasure. Please, if there's any follow-up questions, I'm sure that Joe can find them. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, moving along, reading of communications. I believe.
Good.
Nope.
Well, I mean, you sent one, from the town report. I received it the same day you did, or actually.
Few days
a few days
after.
after. It's interesting, and I went down and I talked to the town manager, And I just kind of said, you know, I got this at the same time, and I'm not blaming, I don't want to put anything on anybody other than that, but I just said I would have liked to have had a conversation, and I think it would have been nice to have somebody sit down with Mary. And the town manager had a great conversation, and it was redirected, and since this has come out, Chief has sat down with Mary and Ryan, and they've had a great conversation, and I think that's where it needed to start. Because, you know, what you can see on the outside coming in 3 or 4 different times, and knowing students inside and out, who has anxiety, who doesn't have anxiety, and who's going through those issues, and just that we dealt with earlier today. You know, you can take a quick snapshot on the outside and not really know what's going on, and it was, like I said, if Mary was here, she said it was a great conversation there. You know, Chief William will get into classrooms and have conversations and be a presence, and he has been a presence with some of the things that we've dealt with. I know some of the things that we deal with have gotten some press, and that makes people, you know, react and have different feelings, but I would say I think things have been better since you received this letter. I redirected it around. I said I will be involved in those conversations. I do think we want to work together with all our law enforcement. We are in a very weird spot here. I've told you multiple times. We could deal on one day with, right here with Newport. If something happens, it could be St. Albans, it could be Comstock County Sheriff, it could be somebody. So it's not just we want to have a good relationship with Newport, and we do, but they're more front and center, but it should be all law enforcement on some level. So I will answer any questions or thoughts you have on this, but I guess I want to say to you that is, I saw it, I didn't see it before you, so I could give you a heads up, or I didn't have kind of some thought process other than when I read it, I went down and talked to Jim, just to get his perspective and to have some conversations with him and redirect it back to Mary, because I think that's where the conversation they were talked about, because I won't go any further than that, but it has been back to them, and I think that's the right place to begin. And if like we don't see any improvement, and then it comes back to us, and we have to continue this conversation, you know, then maybe you guys want to get involved, and we want to have a bigger conversation with a bigger group of people, the town manager, myself, you know, a bigger conversation. But you know, that's kind of my response. And I know you guys got this letter, so if you have any questions or comments or further things you'd like to see, I'm all ears.
Any comments? Anybody have anything you want to talk?
Within the school, don't we have certain obligations if something transpires that's not legal, to let the law enforcement make that decision instead of trying to, I don't know, I wouldn't dare say what it would be, because I'm not here day to day, but, I mean, anything that's possibly criminal, obviously you're gonna do, but even the misdemeanors and small stuff, not unlike, you know, substance abuse or anything like that, aren't we obligated to let the authorities make a determination if there needs to be something along that way done?
Yeah, we are, and again, sometimes, like I said, 4 kids come out of the bathroom, and there's no, you know, they may have been vaping. Who's going to admit to vaping? If you have the vape pen, can you try it to one kid? There is a lot of evidence that gets passed over to them, but there's nobody's name attached to it. There's a large amount, and Ryan and Mary bring in Newport Police, or if Angela and Scott had to bring in them. I mean, it's not that we don't have those conversations, and sometimes they're going to say, yeah, we're going to take that, move it on. That's not our business, but we definitely have opened that conversation. Paul, does that happen? I can't answer you a number of times when they say, hey, you're going to take these guys down to the state house. I talked to Jim, you know, to be honest with you, the whole event that we have listened to online, that did get down to the DA or somebody, and Jim looked at me and said they're not going to prosecute it, you know. So do I know day in and day out which things get taken to the police? I don't. Do I think more and more will? Yep. Do I think it's more difficult because of the amount of product in our community? Yeah.
I think there's some mileage to be had for possibly scaring the pants off some of these kids and saying, look, this is just not a school issue, this is a possible criminal issue, and as I've said a few times, that, you know, if you start off the window breakers, they're no longer gonna be carjackers and murderers, because sometimes they see the errors of their ways more concisely. And this idea is part and parcel of it in my mind.
I think it goes back, I think that policy is coming up perhaps soon. It's another thing in my mind that goes back to policy as well, with perhaps not being as straightforward as it should be when it's just, may take legal action, may involve law enforcement.
Yeah, it is coming around, and I can say that there's been an ebb and flow that I've seen. Sometimes they'll say, yeah, we'll prosecute, yep, we're right behind you. And then do they have the manpower? Does it fall? And, and I'm not, like I said, I think you're gonna see us try it. You'll see it being brought up front and center. We'll change our policy. But I think we have to see how it actually is implemented, because are there people here who are gonna come and take it somewhere? Do they have the manpower? Are they gonna follow through? Do they have, if we send 7 kids to the board for expulsion because they vaped twice, do we have the capacity? And I'm not saying it's not illegal, Paul, I'm not condoning it. I'm saying, how are we gonna embrace this and fix it? Because it's not just our problem right here at this table. It's community, it's statewide, it's a big deal. And when we go at it, it's how are we gonna nibble at it so that we do it in a meaningful way? And is that policy got some education in it? Does it have counseling in it? Do we have the resources to put behind it? Because the kids need to learn. This is unsafe. So, I'm all, we gotta line up our courses and move forward.
Dave?
I'd like to address something that was in that letter, and it was talking about potential metal detectors and school resource officers and all that sort of thing. I do not think that our schools need to be set up that way.
You do or do not?
I do not believe they should be set up that way. This is not prisoners. I know law enforcement community, I grew up, my father's law enforcement. They have a tendency to be a little heavy-handed on some issues, and it's not necessarily the way to go. The kids are already concerned about things that are going on in their life, whether it's hormones and age changes and all this sort of thing. To be having them come through metal detectors into the building and have cops inside the schools, I don't think is gonna do any good. Let's face it, if you see a cop and you're driving down the road and you're speeding, what do? You slow down. If a kid sees a cop, he's in the school, he's gonna do something wrong, he's not gonna do what the cop said, period. That's just the way it is. That's a natural reaction to law enforcement. That's the way it's always been, and I don't imagine it's ever gonna change. But I don't wanna see having metal detectors set up in the schools. It gives, I think, a false sense of security. There have been school shootings in numerous facilities. I hope we never have to deal with that here, but there have been instances where school resource officers have actually had responding police departments and sheriff's offices coming to the facility and asked them to stand down, and they stood back, and there was up to an hour, it's been over an hour in some cases before there was a response by law enforcement into an active shooting situation. So I don't have a lot of confidence in that. I think we want to get something else done, and we're more concerned with those things. We need to maybe push our state legislators to change state law and allow people that work in the school, staff, administration, whatever, that have some special training to be able to carry a firearm in school.
Anyone else? I would say that the conversation will continue. Thank you very much. Superintendent report?
I don't know if it's,
Thank you. Moving on.
Mike, only because it's sort of along these same lines, we did do the bully, or a few bully prevention sessions recently.
they're gonna come, I know there's some coming up at the, Rachel's reached out to somebody. I think, I don't wanna speak from here, but I wanna say she's got something coming out with the guard as well, but I'm not, sure, so that's definitely on the radar, and I know that someone's been scheduled for those. And we're up for that, if it's more, I'd like to be more proactive with that, like get people who are more willing to come into schools and talk to kids ahead of time. I think is we need to get ahead of it. I don't wanna be reactive on some levels.
And equally important for us to communicate to the community that we're having programs like that and such. You've already had a few, right, Ange?
We had, yes, 2 8th grade sessions. We have 4 more planned.
And will you be sending something home to parents to let them know that this has happened and just have it on their
I
radar?
think I put it in the newsletter. If I didn't, it was supposed to be, because it's just for 8th grade right now. It's actually a high school program. It's called the HERE program that the National Guard does, free to high schools, but they agreed to stretch it to 8th grade because I wanted our 8th graders to be able to have the same information. So they don't have a ton for middle school per se, but I did ask them to just see if there were others that we could, again, tweak or alter enough so maybe our 5th, 6th, and 7th graders could be part of something. Because we have not had those kind of assemblies or these kinds of things in several years, and it is showing, you know, that it's been something that we haven't been able to invite people in, and we haven't been able to do full assemblies. So I think going back to that right now is what we're looking to do, and the National Guard is a free resource. But yes.
It has nothing to do with the new blizzard letter, but you said something that jogged my memory a little bit. This doesn't have to be discussed now, but somewhere at some point, there's a lot of issues with the bathrooms, and it's not just it's middle school and high school clearly. So I didn't know at some point if we want to talk about that. I mean, it's ongoing, constant. Whether it's kids, I mean, I hope that's not accurate that kids are pooping in a toilet. It's really horrifying. I mean, sorry, sink. I say toilet because my brain knows it's supposed to be a toilet. But that's not the only thing. Like, you know, the whole all this other stuff that you just said. It's like, okay, this is an issue. Like, I'm not saying I have the answer. Saying it's a good discussion at some point.
We can, yeah, I agree. On hindsight, I wish every one of our bathrooms was some of those groups.
Oh, I know, me too. Well,
If I'd known that,
I've
I
always
would have
thought
said,
that,
put a
yeah.
bunch right down the road.
I know, it'd be great.
I want to digress to the letter again. I'm on board with what David said. I'm just curious if this is it state statute? It would be a good discussion to have where the law is, if that's something that we could possibly pursue, because I don't know where the law is. It's gun-free zone, I suppose, at the state level law-wise, right? There's a gun-free zone. Obviously, law enforcement can come in with a gun. So, many, you don't hear about it as much, but the way to stop a bad person with a gun is a good guy with a gun. And I'm all on board with people within the school district to be able to have that choice if they want it. So, I think it's worthy of something we need to pursue as far as where is the law now, where do we head if this is something we want to do. And I think it's a great idea because, a good strong offense is a good defense. And if they know that this is here, we're not going to, praise God that this never happens in our district anyway. But I just was listening to one on the way in, the guy saved a number of people from having his own legally carried gun. So I think it's a subject we should pursue and get on board with where we want to be if there's a possibility to do so.
There's a law that's called, law number 52 right now, raised by a guy out of Dexter, who has the exact same thing. He says that there should be somebody who's willing to carry a firearm, who has specialized training, consistent training, and it's out there. So watch that. It's law 52.
But it's in a state session at this point. I don't know what the dynamics of that law is, but I'd like to see the possibility of anybody willing to do it within the classroom as they see fit. I mean, that's one guy, maybe a roving, perhaps a resource officer. That sounds like that's what the law is. I mean, we already got that. And sometimes the resource officer doesn't carry a weapon, and I guess he can if he wants to be in law enforcement. But I'd like to see every school teacher that wants to have that availability, have it.
Thank you. Moving on. We have reports of special committees, budget and finance.
We met back in December on the 20th. We reviewed the financials and according to your notes, just according to mine. Big payments came out in October. It looks like we've spent more than we should have at this point, but everything's as it should be, everything's tracking. One of the highlights of the meeting for me, in our ongoing efforts to address our additional staffing due to ESSER and COVID grants over the last couple of years, knowing those grants are coming to an end, knowing we're going through our budget process soon. It's a really in-depth look at positions and processes. So we've been asking anybody who wants to preserve some of those positions that may have been created through ESSER funds to come talk to us about it, because it's next budget cycle, 23-24, where we really need to think about what stays and what goes. So in this meeting, we had the school nursing staff show up. We have an additional school nurse in the high school that is provided with ESSER funds. Nurse Coots gave us brilliant statistics about conditions children were seeing. In your notes, it shows very clearly, first 40 days of school, 5 nurses, a nurse per building, 168 visits per day throughout the district. Some of those issues that Nurse Coots identified to us that were being seen and treated, and also conditions that need to be treated by a licensed RN, such as asthmas, seizure medications, diabetes, EpiPens. And then the biggest bucket of that was chronic diseases that can run the gamut of anything from allergies to behavioral issues that are medicated or monitored. Insulin pumps, a lot of time is consumed with these children, and the nurses are very proactive with that. So a lot of great information was given to us there, really advocating to keep that additional nursing position at the high school. The other, Joe went over the preliminary audit results, which we just proved, so moving on, don't really need to cover that too much. And our last and final issue coming into the spring is our budget timeline. That gets presented to us in chunks. We've decided to hold those workshops. They'll be held at 5:30 as a time frame, and those announcements will be made through our email also as to what's coming up, what's being presented. And again, just ahead of next year and possibly looking at maybe consolidating or rearranging positions, this is the last time we're getting that real microscopic look at each building's budget. So please, I encourage anybody who wants more information on that, not to be sideswiped next year, please show up to those. They're great information gathering and question and answer sessions. Any questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to building.
Building committee meets tomorrow, and come early for discussion of next Monday.
Very good. Moving on to education.
Yep, the education committee this month focused on we kind of got an update from the guidance counselor and Mrs. Brown and Scott as well in terms of the additional guidance counselor position that we created in last year's budget, this year's budget. And the overall thrust of the conversation was it's too early to make direct correlation to things like reduced behavior referrals to the office, but they shared a number of programs and interventions that both guidance counselors and social workers are taking, and there's a lot of information in the notes that you received in your packet. They shared some of those programs that they think are making a difference in the overall culture of the school. So yeah, that's basically the thrust of the meeting. Mrs. Brown's here, so correct me if any of that's incorrect.
No, she also had Ms. Mitchell there to talk about the pathways. Jason, we're trying to get in touch with you. But yeah, we have.
You got my number.
Okay, pathways is, Ms. Mitchell is the pathways teacher, so she also spoke about her program for 7th and 8th grade and how much she's connected with people, programs, schools, people coming in, different things, so.
So the Pathways program is essentially, you can look at it as an extension downward in grade level of what Mary and her staff are doing with the bar grant. It's essentially introducing younger students to what's out there. In addition to college, the trades,
Moving on to policy.
The policy committee did not meet last month due to school vacation. We will be meeting in 2 weeks, where I believe we will be working again on the student dress code, along with, I'm not sure if Mr. Hammer has any other policies that he's intending on bringing. But between now and then, I would urge anyone who has any burning thoughts or ideas about the dress code to formulate them and share them.
That meeting's gonna be January 24th.
January 24th, that's a Tuesday?
So make sure to attend if you have certain issues with that policy.
Can we potentially add the disciplinary action for review, where that's been brought up so frequently lately?
For future policy? Yep. Yeah, we have a few in the pipeline, but I mean, that's not unrelated to the drug and alcohol one that I know Ryan and Scott want to be there, and then that does have some consequences in it, and then we can look at it.
I'm game for reviewing it.
Okay.
For this evening, I would make a motion that we accept for second reading the policies listed in the agenda, KF, KFE1, KFE2, and KFE2. And we've accepted those for first reading, and I believe, just to summarize it, there were some minor changes made to the first policy, and we'll be deleting the KFE2 and adding community use school facilities waiver release and agreement.
So that gives us motion.
So, Mark and Jerry?
Any discussion on the motion?
Are we replacing this red lettered one with another small one some way? I'm still trying to find it.
Yeah, that's what I just kind of mumbled.
Yeah.
Correct.
Because we do not own the Urban Community Center, and then that is the old one being deleted and the new one taking its place.
Which takes out all reference to the Heartland Community Center.
There is a typo. In the new KFE2, down on the bottom, in the bold there, it says including harm caused by the negligence. There's no space between by and the.
Really?
Gotcha.
Other than that, I think that.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the policies listed? Those opposed? Thank you very much. So again, January 24th is the policy committee meeting that they will be discussing the dress code. So please, that is the time to do lots of changes if there are lots of changes to be had. So please attend. Moving on, transportation, no meeting.
No meeting.
Tri-county vocational
Yep.
meeting.
We met on the 15th of December. Mr. Levitt gave us an update on how our programs are doing, and I'll just hit on a couple of the highlights. The early childhood education sponsored a family for the Christmas holiday season. They took in donations and whatnot to help them out. The Army National Guard sent a representative out to work with our Health Hawk, Fire Department, EMT, and a couple of other programs, criminal justice, to give them an introductory training to trauma training, so they could have a little bit of exposure to that. as always, it seems that we work a lot with the Army National Guard through Tri-County, and we get a very good relationship. They extend a lot of their programs to us, and we're very grateful. There's a filmmaker came to the school to do a presentation and visit with our, can't remember the name, what's the name of that class, Mike?
I don't know, there's a computer one and there's a production. It's a
Media production class, Mike. And they worked with him. He was, I guess he did a thing on birds, bees, so they worked. He answered some questions from these, aspiring production students, and it was just another opportunity for them to get exposure with somebody that's really in the industry. You might have seen some commercials on TV for Tri-County. I don't know if anybody watches TV anymore. I know I don't. But they've been promoting the school quite well, I think. And something I'm really happy about, we're working on looking at expanding programming, and Nokomis possibly facilitating a welding program. So we're going to continue looking into that. And I think, one more thing that come up, and this has come up over the 11 years that I've been representing the school. Barriers for kids to attend Tri-County, and I'm not sure where to go with this one, Mike. Is the credits and whatnot. For example, a student required to take an art credit at their home school, which is preventing them from attending Tri-County for graduation. Yep. Where at Tri-County they could meet those standards in a graphics arts program. So that's one thing that I've noticed over the last 10 years, that a lot of kids choose not to go to Tri-County for an academic reason that would prevent them from this, or one certain thing. So how we level that academic field, and I don't think that's even at our district level. Go ahead.
Wouldn't it be possible for us to, as a board, simply to say that credits taken at Tri-County count as if they were taken in the home school?
Some of them do, though.
Because we can do that with a college course.
I think they're starting with the crosswalk right now to see actually what credits, and they're looking at their standards.
Yeah.
As far as they've always kind of been the kind of a traditional grading system. So I think the first step is that they're looking at their standards. So once they can identify their standards, and then you can look at, okay, this is the Nokomis standard, this is the Tri-County standard. Can that meet it? So I think the first step is the way they've started.
Yeah.
We discussed it at that last meeting. They're actually, I think they've got somebody supporting them in terms of facilitator or somebody helping.
Yeah, they have an advisor on tech, and then again, that's.
So then, once you get the standards set, yeah, can you apply those standards so that it's apples for apples, and kids can do that?
But as it stands, Nokomis still sends the most students to the Tri-County Technical Center. I'm very proud to be a part of it. I think it's a great program, and I'd like to see it grow more and more. They are still talking about the regional CTE school. I still think that's quite a few years down the road. What that entails for Nokomis going forward, that's yet to be told.
Any questions for Jason?
You got something, Mike?
Well, I would answer Chris's question. It's like, we have the electrician thing that we're doing down there. Whenever we do, and the ELO coordinators, when they're out in an experience, Mary and her staff do try to get those kids any credit. I mean, that's the whole idea. I mean, if you're out every other day in an extended learning opportunity, whether it's with trucks, agriculture, whatever it is, they do the best they possibly can to give them credits. But there is that matchup, so at the end of the day, you can straight face the fact that you were up there in buildings and trades, and you've got a rigorous math experience, right? And it's just really having them start to look at their standards. Can we line up our standards and then just give the kids credit?
I think it takes the instructors to quantify certain things. So it's good that it's being realized. It'll take a little while for, like you said, on the CTE end, to start to be able to level that out and go ahead.
So, just to clarify, right now, the, at the tech center, those classes, are they considered electives, or do they go towards math and sciences? Do you know, Mike?
I think they're more getting satisfying their requirements to get a credential, right? You get your certificate, you get your driver's license. I mean, that's kind of what you come out of it. I don't know 100% what the crosswalk was, but they're earning credits here at the same time.
Right, I'm just kind of curious how it breaks down, whether it goes towards like math. I mean, because I went to the tech center my senior year of high school, and they know it counted. I went to Dexter, so it counted towards like my math and science credits, just because of the program I was in. So I don't know what it equates to now.
I mean, my sense is that, like Jason says, your rub is if you haven't got your health and you haven't got your PE and you haven't got your, all some of your electives, you may have to choose not to go that program. Or if you want to get credits in visual and performing arts and stack up a bunch of credits because you're interested in drama and those sort of things, you get those credits here. What those actual credits or hours look like up there, I don't know how they apply. And I probably should, and I always get that answer for you, but it seems to me the more or less you get your credential, you get your trade behind you, right?
And also, it might be something that education would want to look into.
And that would be why you're analyzing those standards. And it's been a little while to get the CTE, just because they've been doing what they've been doing for a while. And now, how can we cross over? Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else? Moving along.
Thank you.
Negotiation.
We had a negotiation committee meeting on December 13. The committee received an MOA, which a memorandum of agreement from the support staff. We declined the MOA and will address the topic at our next support staff negotiation, which will be in 2024-2025.
Anything for negotiation?
Have we heard any response?
They accepted the decline.
Accepted with
regret.
They understand that they would like to stay at the table.
Congratulations. Very good. Nothing for pandemic or the renaming committee. I believe this is going to meet here.
Over there.
Right.
I don't know of an appropriate place to do this, but I was looking at the bylaws and there doesn't seem to be a rule about it, so I'm just gonna move that the pandemic ad hoc committee be disbanded.
Second.
There's motion and many seconds on the floor to disband those two committees. Any-
No,
Just one is
the
just
pandemic ad hoc committee.
Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize. Pandemic ad hoc committee. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Passes. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
one of the ones that used to be on the agenda that I haven't seen in a while was the extracurricular committee.
I believe that is waiting for springtime. So we will resurrect that committee for spring. No old business and new business. Right.
So, who's gonna have a motion to approve it?
I don't want to approve anything I haven't seen.
Then you make the motion to take.
I will entertain the motion.
Does it need to be so far? I move that we table the Tri-County Cooperative Agreement, so we have a chance to review.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Passes. Very good. We've had the audit presentation and agreement is tabled. So next would be staff resignations.
Stephen Day was a part-time maintenance person, not full-time maintenance, and Barbara Roselle was in Tech 3 at Coleman Regional High School.
No nominations. Staff appointment.
Coleman custodian, Sebastian Valley Elementary School, Nona Malmquist, custodian, Coleman Regional Middle High School, Cody Kilman, custodian, Coleman Regional High Middle School, Jennifer Smith at Tech 3, Special Ed Somerset, Sheena Neal at Tech 2, Special Ed Somerset, Joseph Levette at Tech 1, Special Ed Coleman Regional Middle School, and I will report that I believe those custodians put the middle high school at capacity for the first time in ages. So I think Alicia and Mary and Angela and Scott should be happy that we finally put that group together.
Very good. And then staff transfers.
Lizetta Smith shifted from Sebastian Valley over to high school, and Leanne Miller was in Ed Tech 3 and Special Ed. There was a long-term sub and life skills teacher at Somerset.
Very good. Moving along, future.
How many maintenance people does that leave us now?
How many do we have total, or like I said, 11 in this building, right?
Well, no, just like Stephen Day, he was part-time.
Yeah, we have one maintenance guy. That was one. This was the first year we had a half-time, so we'll re-advertise it. But that was an ad this year, was a half-time. And you try to pull up. I thought you said custodian. He didn't last very long.
Moving on, future agenda items.
I have something that was just brought up to me right before coming into the meeting here. A lot of the neighbors right around here are very concerned about the Sebastopol pickup line. One of them is actually a retired police officer from Newport. And I know because I sit in that line, but the cars are halfway in the road. So it is really dangerous because there's a lot of traffic on that road at pickup time. Cars leaving and coming in, but when there's snowbanks, cars are completely taking up the whole lane, and you can't get around them. So I'm not sure what needs to be done or who it needs to be addressed to, but it is really dangerous. Like, I don't know where these cars are gonna wait, but.
Gonna be a building committee.
Yeah, well, I can give you a little bit of information on that. When I was down talking to Mr. Ricker, we discussed the Williams Road and that person in that situation, and on some levels, it needs to be addressed. How that's gonna happen right away, I don't know. But in talking to Jim, he has a person that's an engineer, a traffic engineer that works part-time for the state, and Jim's got some time with him. So we're gonna have that person look at it, and then we're also, Dean, and now his extra capacity, is going to be involved in that meeting too, to see what's something that the state can't do to help us out. Because to be honest with you, having those kids get right into school, right in front of that building, in my mind, in the design, was safer than having them walk down through the parking lot and have all those cars driving around the bottom part. So on some levels, when we did the COVID thing and we know which kids are getting into which car, and we can get them to pull down in as quick as possible, I do think on some levels that's safer. But you are correct. We need to keep those snowbanks plowed back. We need to see if we can build a turn lane on either side. And it wasn't really engineered based on how we ended up with the best, safest, like getting kids out into the, because the buses, if you don't know this, the buses pick up all those kids first, and then they're out of here. But then there is a line of people next to this that they're trying to get in, and we try to bring them in as far as we possibly can.
So early.
Yeah, and they come early. So, but we like to pull them all the way across and get as many kids into the vehicles as safe as we possibly can. But we realize that sometimes the buses, and again, we need to talk to our buses, need to not go out into that lane. And we need to get people off the side of the road. Will it be a fix where we need to bring in the DOT and make the lanes? Probably. We have to do a short-term fix. We are looking at it from Dean, me, Jim, an engineer.
Is there a problem with the cars that pull into the driveway right behind the buses? There's room to put two cars side by side. Is there a problem with doing that to get more cars out of the road?
put like cones down the middle and they could, it'd be like McDonald's, who's
Right.
could go across, but maybe something like that to get more cars off. So we'll teach a look at it, maybe that engineer can help us out and take a look at it, and then maybe we'll get the state and the DOT to say, hey, this does need to be, maybe it's on the opposite side, can we make it a little bit wider, can we make this one a little wider? Maybe they'll say, well, you gotta get off the road and figure something like that.
Yes.
I think that correlates with drop off and pick up at the high school too, getting in and out of that parking lot is absolute hell. Like, I've had so many people say, can we not just get a blinking light, or, you know, or have a crossing guard out there and let people out, and, oh my gosh, I mean, it is bad.
Did you ever tell them to put the kids on the bus?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking right now.
Or she would be on the bus.
How far do they have to go?
I don't know. In my defense, it takes me 8 minutes to get here, and the bus is an hour and 10 for him to be on it, so I will bring him.
If we weren't stopping at everybody's house.
Wait, I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, well, bus ride.
Jen.
I know we added a turning lane at the middle school pickup and drop off, but that line of parents goes way beyond there, like past the teacher's parking lot. And, I just don't think the architects ever figured we'd have that many people not taking the lever. And part of the reason is, you know, from what I've heard, is the buses are, you know, full of kids picking on each other and you know, there's chaos going on in the buses. And a lot of kids don't want to be involved in that.
Well, I think that was said back in my day.
Is this an extra agenda item?
Future agenda
items.
When we're discussing bullying, is there also something specific to conduct? Because it seems like there's an awful lot of talk about situations on the bus, not only with students, but with bus drivers recently. I don't know, I don't really want to go into detail because it's ridiculous, but.
Maybe you could.
Staff code of conduct, you mean, Jeff?
I guess, I don't know if the bus drivers are held to a different type of conduct, but, you know, swearing, putting your hands on children, et cetera, like, it's been vast lately, so it's something that we can have a conversation about that, and I believe some of them have already been brought to me, if I'm not.
Any other future agenda items? Good night. Good night. My students are drinking out of coconut. I'm only choosing what wants to make course tonight to be here. For this very pertinent issue. And if I don't see you on Twitter,
Well, I know we do.
not once in 10.
I went to the basketball.